Thank you for being here today. For those of you I don't know, my name is Nick Miller. I'm with the College of Western Idaho, and we're really thrilled to have this fireside chat with our three esteemed panelists that I'll introduce to you shortly. But just again, wanted to thank you for being here. For those of you that don't know, this week is National Apprenticeship Week. And for our partners and friends at Micron, it's been an incredibly busy week. And we're just thrilled that they made time in that week to be here to share this opportunity with CWI students and with our community. So the format of today is I'm going to introduce our panelists. I'm going to ask them a few questions. But really, our hope is that it's a dialogue. This isn't a class where we stand up here and do all the talking and you just consume information. Really, this is meant to be a conversation between all of us. So as we're having this discussion, I want you all, especially the students, to be thinking about what are the questions that you may have about the opportunities that we'll be talking about at Micron, because we really do want to have that discussion with you all. Okay, well, I'm going to introduce our panelists, and then we'll kick it off with a handful of questions. I'm going to start at the far end here. Don Plumley. Don is with Boise State. He is the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs in the College of Engineering. So some of you may get to know Don as you continue on with your education. Prior to that role, Don spent 6 years as the chair of Mechanical and Biomedical Engineering, one of the largest STEM programs on campus at Boise State. Throughout all of his roles, he's been focused on workforce development and engineering and computer science at both the undergraduate and graduate levels. After spending 10 years working in the aerospace industry with Lockheed Martin, prior to returning to academia, Don understands the importance of partnership with industry and workforce development. So please help me to welcome Don. Next to Don, we have Scott Gatzmeyer. Scott is the Corporate Vice President of Front-End U.S. Expansion at Micron Technology. He has more than 25 years in experience across probe, fab engineering operations, and technology development. Scott has been working on U.S. expansion initiatives for the past year and is responsible for Micron's Boise and New York manufacturing expansion projects. That's a lot of responsibility. Scott holds a master's in information and data science from UC Berkeley School of Information and a Bachelor of Science in electrical engineering from University of North Dakota, where he graduated with distinction. A holder of 17 U.S. patents in fields of DRAM and NAND technologies. He also earned an MBA business degree with National Technology University. In his spare time, Scott enjoys spending time with his family and enjoying the outdoors, hiking, snowboarding, running, and biking. Please help me to welcome Scott. Now, one thing I'll note before I introduce Denise Aberle-Kanata, our provost and vice president for academic affairs, is I did not mention where Don graduated from, but I do know that 2 out of the 3 up here are proud North Dakota graduates.
Oh, yeah.
So we've got some really strong roots in North Dakota that have found their way to Idaho.
I'm not North Dakota.
I thought we were going to be 3 for 3. If there's anyone out here that is a North Dakota graduate, we would welcome you. This might be the majority of their alumni association. Okay, Denise Aberle-Kanata. As I mentioned, Denise is the provost here at CWI and the vice president of academic affairs. When she joined College of Western Idaho in 2019 as provost, she's been a leader in continuing to carry the college forward in transformative education, promoting campus diversity and inclusion, and using key technology and educational resources to encourage pioneering instructional methods. She holds a Master of Science in Education from University of North Dakota. Prior to CWI, Kanata served in several leadership roles in higher education institutions across Colorado, New Jersey, and North Dakota. Her work has resulted in several partnerships between the college and the energy sector designed to help replenish the workforce and to establish the National Energy Center of Excellence in her previous roles. Working in higher education for more than 20 years, Kanata has helped to drive student excellence, institutional sustainability, and distance education initiatives with programs to meet institutions' short and long-term strategic visions. Please help me in welcoming Denise. Okay. Well, we have a very impressive panel here with us today. And so what I'd like to do is just jump right into the discussion. We brought these three folks together representing their institutions for a reason. And there's a strong partnership between Micron, College of Western Idaho, and Boise State. We're going to talk a lot about that today. So Scott, I'd like to start with you. Tell us a little bit about your role at Micron. It's a big one, as well as how you got there, kind of your career journey. And then if you can fill in a little bit about Micron's history here and your history with Micron, just for folks that may not be as familiar with the story.
Yeah. Well, first, thank you very much for having us here. It's a real pleasure. And thank you for the tour. It actually really took me back to my days in the lab at North Dakota when I was getting my engineering degree. A lot of the oscilloscopes, a lot of the breadboarding, high-pass, low-pass filters, other things like that that you're learning was directly the same things that we were doing in the lab in North Dakota. So a little bit about Micron's history. Micron was founded in Boise in 1978. So we're coming up on 45-year anniversary, which is pretty amazing. And it was just a design firm that started up in a dentist's basement, right? And then 4 years later, we actually got a lot of money from Simplot, a huge investment, and started our first fab. And then came out with the first 64K DRAM, and then our first industry leading was a 256K DRAM, which is really interesting because now we talk about gigs, so literally 1 million times larger density than the first chips that we were coming out with. And Micron grew from making 2-inch wafers to 4-inch wafers, 6-inch, and then 8-inch wafers. And that's about when I joined and interned in actually 1997. Came out to Idaho. I'm originally from Montana, so it's like, hey, this is and Boise's fantastic, unbelievable place to live, great. And Micron was as fast and as much as you wanted to learn. It was unbelievable. The culture was fantastic and it was a great fit. So I knew I wanted to come back. But we were just Boise, Idaho at that time. And then around the year 2000, we acquired TI's memory business. And that's when Micron became truly a global company. And looking back, my opportunity was the growth, right? A growing company, and if you look at Micron, all that growth provided tremendous career opportunities for me. So one of the best decisions I ever made was, that internship coming out here and coming to Micron, because it created a lot of opportunity. So my job now today, we're expanding in the U.S., and that's honestly one of the most exciting things for me, to be able to create that opportunity for so many other people. And that's what we're going to be doing here, and that's why we want to partner with, CWI and Boise State to ensure that, we're really building the workforce of the future for Micron and for these expansions.
Awesome. We've talked a little bit about Boise and New York. We're obviously very interested in Boise.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about why this investment in Boise and why now?
Yeah, well, the demand for memory is tremendous. And if you look at the market drivers that are out there, from autonomous driving vehicles, data centers, all the AI applications, cell phones and 5G, the demand for our business is absolutely booming. And we needed to do a TD expansion for more space for us out here anyway.
TD.
Technology development, thank you. So it's where we do all of our research development, all of our product development still here in Boise. We needed to do an expansion for that. But by making it a large, and we've started moving dirt, so if you're driving down the interstate, you'll see all of the earth moving equipment out there. By building a large 600,000 square foot fab, which is the single largest fab that's ever been built, right? Here in Boise, Idaho, we're able to capitalize on what we call high volume manufacturing and technology development co-location benefits for faster cycle time, early pilot ramps to get products accelerated into customers' hands and other things like that. So we, needed the capacity and then the opportunity to have that technology development and high volume manufacturing co-location is really the drivers behind the decision to enter that.
Gotcha. And I think one of those things that you mentioned that I love is you hear a lot about different industries that are growing, right? Autonomous vehicles, artificial intelligence. Well, you all are really the backbone of all of them,
Yeah.
right? So the chance to get in on a growth industry at this point is really, in some ways, unprecedented in this valley, but it's a huge opportunity. Thank you, Scott. Denise, I'm going to jump over to you and ask you to share a little bit about career technical education at CWI. And really, we're no luck that we're actually just in the Micron Education Center here at CWI. We've been partnered from the beginning with Micron, but share a little bit about our partnership looking back and also today looking forward.
Absolutely. And what a great looking group. I first have to acknowledge all of our students and faculty that came today. But the Micron Center, of course, was a partnership long before I got here, but somebody had the foresight to see where the puck was going and creating this entity here that's training the workforce for the Treasure Valley yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And as Scott said, everything is changing at such a rapid pace, and I couldn't be prouder to be with an entity that is always looking forward. We're not, our Micron program, our mechatronics program up until 2016 was called electronics, but that phased out. Why? Because our faculty and leadership saw that things were going in a different direction, and we needed to revamp our curriculum, stay current, and create a program that would get our graduates, 225 had graduated from our mechatronics program just since 2016. About 30% of those students transfer out and go on into engineering institutions, which is our partnership with BSU and others. So that's looking forward, and CTE has been and continues to be and will always be a huge part of what CWI does here in the Treasure Valley. And that's not to take away from our academic transfer program, which also, feeds a lot of our institutions and creates different jobs. But in mechatronics, there's a pathway created for our students. And again, we're super excited to be a part of this futuristic endeavor that's being undertaken in Boise, Idaho. I haven't been this excited since we put nuclear energy online with the Department of Energy back in North Dakota. So this is amazing. And that was after 3 Mile Island, by the way. So this is just really exciting for CWI.
Awesome. Thank you, Denise. And Denise mentioned one of the concepts that we're exploring here today, and that's the ability to continue on. And obviously, Boise State has a long-standing relationship with Micron as well. So, Dawn, maybe share a little bit about your role at Boise State, that connection that you all have to Micron, and any success stories or any students that you may have had contact with and ended up at Micron, to try to paint a picture for our audience of what that could look like as they continue on.
Okay. So I'm the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs, and so we deal with all the different programs of engineering and computer science and construction management at Boise State and within the College of Engineering. And we've definitely, we have a strong history of looking to partner with our local industry, and obviously Micron is one of the main players in that space. And so we're very, in fact, I was just chatting with Scott before we started the talk. And it's interesting, we really owe our existence as a College of Engineering to Micron back in 1997 when we started off and we kind of split apart from the University of Idaho system, and when we established a separate entity here at Boise State. And so it's been, this is our 25th anniversary as a College of Engineering here in Boise, and we're very excited about the growth that we've seen, and a lot of that has really been due to our relationships with Micron. And I was trying to count up the number of buildings that were associated with with Micron. Definitely the Micron Engineering Center, which I believe is one of our second or third oldest building there on campus, and then the brand new Micron Center for Materials Research, which just opened up a couple of years ago. And it's a magnificent building, great, fantastic space. It's really devoted towards materials research of all sorts, not just materials science, but people from chemistry and mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, all have access to that space. It's a very transdisciplinary problem-solving space. So we really owe that to Micron. In addition, they've basically sponsored the development of 2 PhD programs at least within the College of Engineering, the Material Science and Engineering PhD program, and the Electrical and Computer Engineering program. That happened back in like 2007, I believe. And so we've had a strong history of partnering at that level, but from a student perspective, we've had students that have they've been working as technicians at Micron and they've come back to school to get an engineering degree. That's been a pathway that we've seen a lot of, as well as students that graduate from Boise State in a variety of different majors, going on to work at Micron and being long-term employees. In fact, my graduate student, she just graduated this summer. She was a young lady whose family's from Mexico, Karen Perez, and she just recently finished her master's degree in mechanical engineering, first in her family to actually get a college degree, and now she's just recently taken a job at Micron, so we're really excited. It was a complete transformation of her life and her family's life. I think it really speaks to the partnership that we have. So I think that's probably answers your question.
Yeah, it really does. And we're going to come back to this idea of starting in your high school, coming to CWI, how we can help you get to Boise State and get you to Micron and furthering your education all the way through. So we'll definitely circle back to that with Dawn, because there's some really innovative ways as well as funding opportunities available to students. We've kind of given an overview of all of our institutions and the partnership, and really I want to take it just one granular level down and start talking about these opportunities, employment opportunities. And as we've mentioned, Scott, you all are making a large investment here in Boise, and it's going to require a really significant workforce. And as we've heard already this week, there's opportunities for our students and others. So maybe if you could start talking about the apprenticeship program a little bit and that opportunity, and then maybe zoom out and talk about the overall employment opportunity in the coming years.
Yeah, great. So we're kicking off an apprenticeship program at Micron. We've got 10 positions that we're starting right now where you can come in, work with Micron, have an understanding why you're getting your degree, and really learn on the job and see what that is and get a firsthand understanding of how the skills that you're learning in the labs upstairs are going to directly apply to the job at Micron. And it is really directly applicable. And we really want to build a strong pipeline to take advantage of the opportunities that are going to come associated with this mega fab that we're building. So by the end of this decade, we're going to hire over 2,000 people as we fill out this fab. And there are going to be 2 major types of roles that are there. One of them is engineering, and it'll be a lot of different disciplines in engineering. So electrical, chemical, material science, you name it. We've got integration roles, process engineering roles, a lot of roles there. But we're also going to hire a substantial number of technicians. And those roles are very, very exciting because you get to apply the knowledge that you're learning here in the lab directly to semiconductor manufacturing equipment. And that semiconductor manufacturing equipment, while it may be daunting, you hear our EUV, which stands for Extreme Ultraviolet Light photolithography tool. That tool is $300 million, one of them, right? We're going to have 4 of those tools in the fab, let alone the support equipment. So when you hear about working on a $300 million tool, you may get nervous. But guess what? It has the same robotics, it has the same electronics, the same pneumatics that you're learning now. And that's what's great about Micron is we'll send you out for additional training at the vendor, right, to learn what are the error codes, what's the troubleshooting, right, how to do that, and give you the tools to be able to work on that. But when, so sometimes it seems daunting, but those basic skills that you're learning here today are going to directly apply to those jobs. And then we see a lot of times at Micron, technicians who learn about the equipment, learn about the process, become the best engineers in the company because they understand it at such a fundamental level. So having the opportunity to, start out, and then go either, get an engineering equivalent through work or go to BSU, at night or get, a degree while you're working for Micron is another great opportunity to really build a career.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that idea of starting really at the machine and working your way up, I know that's something that we hear a lot at CWI is the pathway. Where do you start and where can you go? And Denise, maybe talk a little bit about how we have high school students or others, people that are even mid-career and thinking it's time for a change. What are some of those pathways at CWI and what are the things that they can do to prepare themselves for these careers in the future?
Absolutely. Regardless if you're a pioneer or a settler, there's nothing wrong with either path you choose. We have many pathways for students, and it's never too late for career changers either. So CWI is the largest dual credit provider. So for those of you that don't know what dual credit is, we offer courses in the high school that are the equivalent of college credit. Every May, we have at least 2 to 3 high school students who graduate with an associate's degree, which means they can move on into their, junior year at a local university. But the pathways we create, I know Robert Novak, our mechatronics instructor, they have dual credit courses that we're offering currently in the high schools in this program to help prepare high school students and create awareness for students. A lot of times when you say mechatronics, it's not like a ER doctor where people immediately understand what that career path is. But by educating students at the 7th through 12th level, you start to open that door, and then we have advisors that attend these high schools on a regular basis to help meet with parents and put these students on a pathway. But now if you miss the dual credit opportunity, we still have a pathway here. You can enroll in our mechatronics program, as many of you probably have. There's probably certificate-seeking individuals here and degree-seeking individuals. If you seek the certificate, you can still come back, and on top of that, we call it an inverted degree. You can get your associate degree, and then you can continue on your pathway to BSU into engineering. It is designed for as you mature in your work life, your opportunities are still present for you. Much like Scott described your journey, that's the journey that we've created at CWI, always looking at the intersects and then how do you move up as you mature through your work life.
Awesome, thank you. Do we have any dual credit students here today? If you're a dual credit student, raise your hand.
Yay.
All right, good, thank you.
Great.
Thanks for not being shy.
Yeah.
Being here rather than at your high school today. Dawn, Denise talked a little bit about continuing on, and I know that in partnership with you at Boise State and at College of Southern Idaho, we just received this STEM grant from the NSF.
Right.
Could you share a little bit about that and what a student pathway, maybe we have some folks in the audience that will finish up their associates here and want to continue on. Tell us about that program and how students can take advantage of it.
Okay, well, thanks, Nick. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. This is something that's really exciting for me right now. We just about a month ago received the final notice that we've received it's a $5 million NSF STEM award, which scholarships in STEM is what STEM stands for, and it's the largest. It's a Track 3, what they call a Track 3 consortium, which means it's multi-institutional. And I believe it's the largest one ever awarded in Idaho. And in fact, our proposal was, we negotiated with the program manager at NSF. We were originally $4 million, and they said, no, can't you make that a little bit bigger, like 5? And we're like, well, sure, yeah. I've never had a program manager negotiate up like that. Usually they want you to trim it a little bit. But So it was an amazing experience. And it's really a partnership, you know, as Denise was really talking about, these ideas of developing pathways from a wide range of places, like wherever you come from in life, how do you get to the career that you want? And just like what you were describing it very much the way I think of it as well, and this idea that a pathway through CWI or CSI, and you start here, you get a lot of wonderful basics, and then you transfer into Boise State and finish up your degree there. This scholarship, this program is really designed to make that even more seamless. And so it's really, a lot of it's about scholarships. So about, of the $5 million, about 3.6, I believe, $3.6 million is going to go towards scholarships for students. And these are going to be focused on scholarships that start when you first enter at CWI and will follow you all the way through to your final semester at Boise State. And it's what they call a last dollar scholarship, so it comes in afterwards, after everything else that you've been awarded. It's up to $10,000 a year per student, which is a pretty substantial amount. I think it will make a big difference in the ability of you to really attend full-time and not have to work and as much to make ends meet while you're going through school. So it's really something that we're super excited about. And then, so the scholarships are really important, but also the development of a cohort so that you're at CWI, we're thinking of you as a Boise State student at the same time, right? You come in, we will help recruit students into CWI and think of you building a cohort across all these institutions of people that are interested in engineering and computer science and traveling that path. And so you're gonna have help, like when you transfer into CWI, help in that transition, and then you have another transition to go to a four-year institution. There's a new set of challenges, you know, life challenges. We'll help you there too. And so there's going to be a lot of support structure as well that goes in with it, not just the money. We're not just throwing money at it. So it's about building those pathways and really lowering the barriers. And so I like to think of it as an engineering ecosystem. Ecosystem's kind of a funky word, but it's really about, like, we're not just a siloed campus in Boise State. We're all of us together as one big educational ecosystem.
That's a good point. It really is, you know, from Twin Falls all the way out here to Nampa, and we want to make sure that we're apprising students of these opportunities. So other than coming and tapping your shoulder after this event, how do they get information? Where do they? I'm sure there's a lot of people going,
yeah,
$10,000 a year, that sounds pretty good.
Might be interesting to some people,
where does someone go and get information on this?
We actually were because we just, you know, went through the process of getting the award, so we're kind of in the ramp-up phases right now, but we just had a meeting yesterday with Robert, who's our CWI representative on it, and we're, Robert Novak, and we're talking about a soft start in the spring and then a full-on rollout in the fall, of next coming fall. So we'll do some recruiting events in the spring. I'll be back to see you. And then, but we're going to have a smaller group that's going to sort of prototype some of the cohort development here, this hopefully starting in the spring. So there will be a little mini recruitment phase here in the late fall, early spring.
Okay. Well, in that same vein, Scott, we talked about the apprenticeship opportunities. Where do students go and get information about that?
Yeah, well, I guess the first thing is today we have our talent acquisition team here. Maybe do you all want to raise your hands? I think if you have questions, you know, after this would be a great place to start. And then also micron.com/careers has all of our job postings on it. And in fact, you can upload your resume there, do searches for all the different types of jobs that we have. And it'll be refreshed and you'll see the latest job offerings that are out there for Micron.
Cool. Well, we talked a lot about the technical skills that it takes for employees to get started at Micron and elsewhere. But we know that all of these jobs require a lot more than just that. It requires relationships and building trust among a team. Tell us a little bit about the culture of Micron and some of those soft skills that you look for when you go to hire people.
Yeah, it's a great question. One of the first things that I would start with would be a growth mindset in being curious and wanting to learn. A lot of the skills that you're learning today are preparing you for the workforce, but when you get there, like I still remember an interview question I got asked, can you draw a cross-section of a DRAM? And I'm like, nope. You know, and then they asked, well, can you draw the cross section of a transistor in a capacitor? And it was, yep, no problem. Here's what it is. And I really learned on the job how to be effective at it. And so always being curious and keeping your skills fresh in wanting to learn and grow, I think is something that really look for in wanting to do that in team members. The other thing that I was really excited when we walked into one of the classrooms, there was a group of students huddled around an oscilloscope, and the collaboration, that's one of our values. The collaboration that's going on is just absolutely fantastic, because that's another thing about Micron. We have so many specialty disciplines. You could spend an entire career just learning photolithography or just learning probe and go so deep in it and be cutting edge and always staying at the forefront of industry, because we're a technology leader. It's amazing what we get to do right here in Boise, Idaho, and have an incredibly enriching and rewarding career. Or you can learn a vast, move areas and learn a large breadth of what we do. But it takes those experts in each of those disciplines to come together and collaborate to really develop the products that we make. So collaboration is absolutely key, and so it's really great to see that you all are doing that and teaching that in the classrooms here.
Awesome, thank you. Dawn, Denise, for a lot of these students that may spend their time in the lab and they're thinking, oh gosh, growth mindset, where do I go on campus to learn about that if it's not immediately available to me? Can you share resources at your specific institutions where our students can come in and learn some of those necessary skills to transition into the workforce?
Well, are you talking about courses or?
More of
just
the soft skills
skills
side of it.
Okay, so what I heard about the engineering and the technician job is a lot of commonalities, right? It seems to be a theme of the pathways of both require critical thinking skills and problem solving. One is probably keeping systems running, one is envisioning what those systems could look like in the future and helping to create those. So really, it's the future you design, not the one that CWI tells you about. We work with our students. If you come here from high school and math wasn't your favorite subject, we've got preparatory courses to help bridge that gap. The same thing for our calculus and our physics courses, so that when you do transition to BSU, you've got a well-grounded foundation in that subject matter expertise. So don't let that dissuade anybody from thinking, I could never be an engineer. With perseverance, you can accomplish anything, and CWI prides itself on providing the tools you need in that toolkit to create whichever pathway that you choose, whether it's at the technician level or all the way up to your PhD, engineer, whatever stops you have in between. We've got those resources. If you go to you can go to our website, or you can go right over here to our Enrollment Student Service Center and speak with an advisor. They can direct you to any resources, or upstairs at testing and assessment. Wherever you stop and ask the question here at CWI, we're all prepared to help you be successful.
Dawn, a lot of our students at CWI, and I know a lot of the students at Boise State, actually I'm in the same boat. We're the first in their family to go to college. Mm-hmm. And so tell us about what Boise State does to come around those folks as they walk into a four-year institution. Culturally, academically, socially, it's a different experience, and just speaking from my own experience, it can be daunting. So sure. How do you come around those folks and support them in their journey?
Well, it really follows along with what Denise was saying there. One of the things that we do, and I know that's definitely a challenging thing. We have been talking about this, and even in terms of that STEM award, is like, what if people don't have a bank account, or what happens if their Wi-Fi, they can't pay their Wi-Fi bill? I mean, sometimes there's like these life challenges that happen, and how do we help them overcome those things that are sort of like beyond the curriculum, right? Little things like that can be in your way. So there's definitely some thought about that in terms of the support structure there. But one thing I would like to mention that I didn't mention earlier in terms of our relationship with Micron, that really talks about these types of soft skills and sort of life skills, if you will. and professional skills even. So all these kind of rolled together are a really important part of your educational path. And Micron has recently funded what we call it just the Micron Student Success Center in the College of Engineering. And we're very, very appreciative of the recognition from Micron that they see these things as really valuable skills that, beyond the technical skills. And so within that space, we are looking at career coaching, opportunities for students to, early on get help with resumes, learn how to get on LinkedIn, and all the things about that path. What does it look like to be an engineer? What does it look like to be a computer scientist? And how that path looks, and what are the things you can do to take advantage of internships or apprenticeships, things like that. But also about teaching leadership skills and teamwork skills, and providing a community there for the students that may be uncertain, study skills, things like that. So all of the above. It sits outside of the classroom space in terms of philosophically, but it's co-located physically in the College of Engineering there, and we've, like I said, we've just recently opened it up and started it. We're in the middle of hiring a director of that right now. In fact, there's an interview this afternoon that I'm going to be on for that search, and we're really excited about what that brings. It really brings that broader perspective to help those students that come from a more diverse background. And we realize that that's the future of our field. I mean, it's this idea of reaching out to a small rural town like Filer down near Twin Falls, and having a student that maybe they have maybe they could work in their dad's machine shop or something like that, but instead see engineering or computer science as a career path for them, and helping them through all the challenges that come through that. So we really appreciate the support and recognition of that from Micron.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks to Micron for that. That's incredible.
Very impactful.
So we've kind of gone from here's the Micron and CWI and Boise State story to here's potentially your story as part of that larger story, and we're getting close to wrapping up, but I'd like to just zoom out again, Scott, and pose this question to you, just to frame the overall investment in the United States of manufacturing, specifically around semiconductors, and what that means from a, not to make this too large, but a national security perspective, from an economic perspective, and you all have had the Department of Labor Secretary here yesterday. You had President Biden in your New York facility, and just talk about the importance of this, not just to this area, but to our country as a whole.
Yeah, no, another great question, one of the reasons why we're so passionate about it. So the first thing, I think a lot of you have seen probably this in the media and in the news across there about how important semiconductors are. National defense. They're also the backbone, which you mentioned earlier, of a lot of other industries, autonomous driving vehicles, AI, 5G networking, and other items like that. And so when you look at what's built upon them in the potential implications to national security, it's absolutely imperative. The other thing that we've seen really over the last 20 to 30 years is that there's been a massive movement of semiconductor manufacturing, not just memory, but all semiconductor manufacturing overseas to Asia. And we've really lost that discipline. And this is the most advanced manufacturing in the world. I mean, what is done inside of Micron and inside of semiconductor fabs is the most state-of-the-art equipment that you can work on. So having that discipline and enabling that to be done here in the U.S. is absolutely an imperative from a national security standpoint. So we are absolutely thrilled that the U.S. government, passed the CHIPS and Science Act and also the ITC, which is an investment tax credit, so that we can build, these factories on level playing field with Asia. So we're incredibly excited about the opportunity that did. Now we talk about what opportunity is there for Boise and why it means so much. In 2008, we stopped manufacturing here in Idaho, and there was a large loss of jobs. And it's been fortunate that we were able to pivot a lot of that space and really turn it into a world-class, technology development center. And we're leading with our 1-beta DRAM and our 232-tier NAND. So we have the leading technology in the world for memory. So the ability to leverage, that technology and capitalize on it right here in Boise, Idaho, building this mega fab and create opportunity for, our kids, right, to be able to stay in the state of Idaho. Like, I joke that I grew up in Montana, went to North Dakota, and there were no jobs in Montana that wanted, what? I'm not going to talk about how cold it was in North Dakota. But there weren't any real good jobs in Montana. And so, looking at it, at the time when I was graduating, DRAM was worth its weight in gold, and I mean, the internet was just taking off, and it was incredibly exciting. And so the opportunity to come here and be part of something that was growing was unbelievably great. And so jumped on it, and it was one of the best decisions. I had no idea when I joined. I was happy writing my C code, being an engineer, being able to swap boards on the tools. Had no idea it would lead to these types of opportunities. And then it was one step at a time. It just, kind of natural. And I was always curious. Micron fortunately paid for a couple degrees, taking advantage of the education assistance program. But, you kind of look at that next job at first, and you're like, oh man, there's no way I could do that. Then after a couple of years, like, okay, maybe I could. And then you get it, and it's like, wow, I can do this. And that's the growth. So to be able to have that here, right, for the state of Idaho and create those opportunities where, kids can have an exciting state-of-the-art technology development career right here is an unbelievable thing to be a part of. Something that I'm really, really excited about.
Yeah, thank you. Love that. Well, we wanted to leave some time here for you all to have questions of the panelists, and I know that this might be bad timing because now these questions are the only thing that stand between you and lunch at the end. But we really, again, just wanted to have a dialogue. So we'll open it up for questions from the audience, and yeah, scan the questions.
I have a question. It was just curiosity to you, Scott. I've read about your 232, tier NAND, and you said you had some patents in NAND. I was just curious what they are.
Yeah, so actually for NAND, so I started in probe. I'll just tell you one of them. But so the interface that we test the NAND device with, it's really innovative, really low pin count, RLPC. Is the interface that we test NAND with. And the reason why low pin count is beneficial is because now we're able to test all of the die on one wafer at the same time. Before we'd have to chunk along through because we didn't have enough pin electronics. So we have IOs, drivers, power supply buses. Was able to get those down to basically where it's 4 control pins and a handful of power supplies. And so that was one of the patents that I have. And I don't know, was working on it, testing it, was working with the tester company, and it was, okay, here would be the most efficient, effective way to do this. And then that's kind of where the idea came from in the patent.
Thank you.
You said you were creating, I believe, about 3,000 positions at the new facility. Was that
2,000 positions at the new facility by the end of the decade.
Okay. And what's the expected life cycle on those positions? Are those intended to be permanent? Or?
Yeah, those are permanent Micron positions. So, I talked about extreme ultraviolet lithography tools being 300 million, of which this fab will be fit to where it can house 4 of them, right? Alongside that, there are literally, this is a $5.5 billion investment in the building, and then by the end of the decade, we're going to spend another $9.5 billion in equipment. 20% of the cost of those tools is installing those tools in this fab, right? And so once it's there, it's there. It can't go anywhere. And then in manufacturing, you have to run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's why we have, shift work. So a lot of our technicians work 3-day shift and 4-day shift, and it's 12 hours, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and then 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. because it's around the clock. And so we're running this equipment, maximizing obviously what we call our capital assets, right? Utilization is incredibly important to us. So, yeah.
Question.
Yeah, for you. What are the credit transfer opportunities look like for going to engineering, like say electrical engineering from the AMAC program?
So when you say credit transfer opportunities, you mean what courses
What
transfer?
equivalency do our courses have? If any.
They have, yes, they have equivalency. It's actually very interesting. I actually met with the State Board of Education this morning, some of the members from that, and we actually just discussed this idea of like how do we create better pathways. And so one of the first things we're going to do on this grant is really look at those very specifically and create. I mean, we have articulation agreements, but I think something that's more student-facing that shows like this is what your path looks like to go. Here you start at CWI and then you finish at VSU, and it's very clear. It's not just a murky. That's what I read from your question is like I don't even know.
Yeah,
so,
it's like, does this course actually have a value over here, or is it just
right? And you shouldn't have that question. That should not be that should be very clear and right in front of you a document. So hopefully between now and say early spring, we will have all those for all the programs, not just electrical engineering, but for mechanical, civil, construction management, all of them. And they're all kind of stitched together in this award, and so this is the work that we're doing right now to do that. So I mean, we could probably sit down and look at your transcript specifically, but as of now, I can just tell you in broad strokes are that the courses that you're taking here, within, like I can be 99% sure that they're all going to transfer. Usually the problem happens like with regard to when, like the prereqs that you may have to take a couple of courses that normally a student at VSU might take in a sophomore year, and you can't take them until you get there. And so that kind of pushes you out a little bit, but what we're trying to do is like when we see those pinch points, then we can offer those online, and we have a new dual enrollment policy and a new financial aid policy that allows that to be a much more seamless process. So I'm very confident that we're going to have opportunities for really a 2+2 type of agreement for engineering and computer science, which I think is something that's been elusive for us to get to.
Thank you.
So yeah.
Great question.
Yeah, it was.
Any other questions? Yes.
Scott, I'm wondering if you can talk about some of the fantastic wraparound services that Micron's going to be offering so that people who are working on these shifts can still have support for their families.
Yeah. So I think you may have read in the press that Micron's putting a on-site daycare that's going to be administrated by the YMCA. So that'll be a great benefit for our team members to be able to take advantage of so close by and be able to do that. The other thing, I think the education assistance is another big one as well. So who here works at Micron and is taking advantage of that? I know Casey, there are a couple others. So if you want to know what it's like to work at Micron and take advantage of that, those would be the people to please go talk to. And then Jim worked at Micron for a long time. He knows a lot about what we do. If you want to know all the secret sauce and what's going on, Jim's a great person to talk to. But and that's something that the training department and workforce development that Cassie leads really does a great job of bringing in, like Coursera courses so that students, if you want to learn like Python programming, you can go out and just take that course, right? If you want to learn electronics or thermodynamics, you could just go pick that and get a certificate on it and do it. And then we also, that team develops all of our process flow in technology documents, and they teach those courses on the Micron campus. And so that's where you can really learn, a lot about the semiconductors and the products that we make as well. And then obviously the education assistance, Micron, as I mentioned, is paid for 2 of my master's degrees, but also certificates, the vendor training. We send our team members out when we get a new tool to go to the vendor to learn, like they'll go down, maybe to Japan to TEL to learn, or Kokusai, or down to California to learn from LAM or ASML about how this equipment works. And then you are the expert on that tool when you go and get that vendor training, and you bring that expertise back and train all of your peers on that. So really, when you look at those types of benefits, you're really learning state-of-the-art industry stuff.
Any other questions? We have a very hungry audience. Okay, well, again, thank you all for being here. Thank you, Dawn, thank you, Scott, thank you, Denise. This has been really great chat, so I appreciate you all making time in your day. A couple of things. There will be lunch in the back. Micron recruitment team has set up a table out here. They will have, I believe, a VR tour of the fab, so you can get a preview of the place where you may end up working. And they have a lot of swag, and they've said they are not taking any of it home. So getting in here was free, but you have to take something. But we just really appreciate you all coming out. Please stick around, grab a sandwich, chat with the Micron folks, ask some questions, start a conversation. We're here to help you, and we're rooting for you as you take this next step in your career. So thank you all, and thank you to our panel.